Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Capes and Lunatics Comic Capers. I am Phil, as usual, and Lilith is here. And this is a big one because it's New Comics Wednesday, and we have probably the person responsible for most of the comics that came out in the last week, at least for Marvel. At least one of them, Miss Kelly Thompson.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming back.
Of course.
And as we are just talking offline, Kelly is very busy these days.
I am. I'm very lucky. It's combining into a pretty hellish 6 to 8 weeks, but it's a very good problem to have.
So I thought we'd start with the one that came out first. Your Jessica Jones digital series.
We called that, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah, I was very lucky that a lot of people thought it might be me, which was very flattering. I saw a few other names who all also would have been very good floated when my name was sort of out there, but I was very lucky, and that was a really hard secret to keep for a really long time.
Oh yeah, especially since like you wrote on the last page of the first issue, which I downloaded. Ask Lilith, I never get digital, especially if they're going to be reprinted in paper later. But I downloaded it, loved it, because I knew after reading your Kate Bishop stuff, I knew Jessica Jones was going to be good. But you wrote that Mr. Brian Michael Bendis actually contacted you himself.
Yeah, it was awesome. I got this DM from him. He was like, "Can I call you?" And I was like, yes. It was amazing. And yeah, it was well before he was, I mean, I don't know his personal schedule, like what he was planning, but it was well before he had said he was leaving. And it's a really big deal. I mean, not only is Brian Michael Bendis one of my favorite comics creators, and he's sort of a comics god, certainly compared to where I am. And, Jessica Jones is one of my favorite characters. Alias was a book that was pivotal in bringing me back to comics after a sort of long hiatus from them. Ironically, when I went to college to study comics, I sort of stopped buying them, which is bizarre. But but it was also a big deal because, nobody but Brian has ever written her in her own series. I mean, she's obviously been written by other writers, when she pops up in other things, and in Avengers or something, I'm sure some women have gotten to direct her a little bit, but in her own book, it's only ever been Brian, and therefore it's sort of never been a woman. And that was a lot. That was a lot of pressure, to live up to what Brian might hope and expect in handing that off, and also in what could I say with the character, what could I bring to the character, what could I do that was going to be totally respectful and feel accurate to what he had done, but that also sort of carved our own path and didn't try to be derivative. It was a really big challenge. It's funny, I was talking about voice on Twitter the other day, relating to some other things, and like how sometimes I understand why readers get frustrated and want to say, well, that's not the right voice for that character, and that I understand where they come from with that, and I've certainly felt that myself. But as a writer in general, I have a real problem with saying that that's wrong, because while there are certainly bad, unresearched examples out there, there's also plenty of stuff where it's just like, well, maybe that person doesn't see the character the same way you do. And there's also a lot of really great examples out there of someone seeing the character differently and ending up making an incredible evolution for a character. I think Clint Barton Hawkeye with Matt Fraction is a great example. I would say Emma Frost, back in the day when they sort of started to explore her as more than just a villain. So But even though I was having that conversation and I believe all those things, I would say a character that doesn't apply to very much is Jessica Jones, because she's had a really singular voice. You know, and she's more than you usually see in a character that's been around for nearly 20 years. And in some ways that's great for me, because it makes my job easier to go in and distill what it is that makes her tick, and to read all the significant parts of her run, which can be very difficult when you're talking about characters with 40 years of history, like a million comics. It can be really daunting. But with Jessica, in some ways that's easier, but it didn't take the pressure off to get it right. It made it feel all the more important that I not bungle it. So it was pretty stressful. Fortunately, I had really good partners in crime. Alana was fantastic, my editor, Alana Smith. And as everyone's discovering, Mattia is incredible. He's a sort of super rising star, and as pages have been coming in as we've been working on this, Alana is like, I basically have to like cover him and kick other editors away from us so that we can keep him, because everyone wants him now.
But no, I think you really succeeded with Jessica Jones, because I could see your style in there, especially from like reading the Kate Bishop stuff. But it didn't occur to me that the character, you know, had like the wrong voice. I'm like, okay, yes, this is the same character we've been reading since day one, and it was great. And you probably enjoyed that this was a more mature book, so you could like ramp up the language and, you know, any violence.
It was fun. I mean, you know, I write a lot of sort of comedy superhero stuff, and I like to get a little bit raunchy, but Jessica Jones definitely provides a darker outlet there. It was funny. I saw someone somewhere on Twitter or a forum or something saying like, well, I don't really think Thompson can handle like a darker crime story. And I was like, really? Really? Let me show you.
Yes.
Anyways, it's been a real wild ride. It's been amazing.
And it's like kind of a twofer too, because then if you can write as much Luke Cage as you want also.
Man, it's really hard not to want to just put him in the book all the time. I'm a really big fan of that character, but I do think you got to be careful. You know, especially with the sort of feminist leanings of a character like Jessica Jones. Like, it's really easy for a charismatic, awesome character like Luke Cage to sort of overwhelm some things that you've got going on. So he comes back in 5, which I guess this is going to be confusing to talk about in every interview going forward. So that'll be issue 3. So since they're bundled into 2s, it's issue 1 and 2, issue 2 and 3, or issue 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and then 5 and 6. So the end of this first arc is 5, and he'll be back in that one. And then issue 6 is sort of a standalone story with an alternate artist, and Luke's in that one a lot. And that one sort of bridges the gap to set up the new arc. And I'm just trying to absorb all the love now, because people are going to be real mad at the cliffhanger in issue 6 when they remember that they're going to have to wait 3 or 4 months for the next installment, because it's a killer.
Oh, no.
It's a real killer. And in fairness to me, we were still deciding how this publishing model, you know, I mean, it's all very experimental. Like we're all figuring it out as we go. And when we first plotted it, and when I came up with the idea, we didn't know it was going to be a big break. And I thought about changing it to make people less pissed, but it wasn't a better story to do that. So I stuck to my guns. But man, there's going to be a whole wave of pissed off people coming at me in September.
Hey, it's like a TV show, you know.
It is. But I think the argument will be 3 months and 120 pages isn't enough of a season for that kind of cliffhanger to go into the next.
Only if you watch British television.
There you go. Good point. I will be using that as my argument.
But I guarantee you, even the angry people, they're going to come back to see how it works itself out. So
I hope so. I mean, you know, there's another funny thing about inheriting this from Brian, and it's like she's his baby. And when I think about how much it takes to hand something like that off, some character that you're so attached to that you've been writing off and on for 20 years that has almost singularly had your voice driving her. And my instinct is that I want to protect that 100%, right? Mm-hmm. I want everything to be okay for Jessica. I don't want to do anything to mess it up. But that is absolutely the opposite of who Jessica is and what her life is. It's messed up. Mm-hmm. So I had some real come to Jesus moments when working on this where I'm like, oh God, can I really do this? And I'm like, I have to. Like, that's who the character is. That's the world she lives in. I got to go all the way. So it's we're in for some great stuff, but also some really rough water ahead. So it was one of the reasons it was really important to me that we have that sort of blissful, sunny Hell's Kitchen park scene with Luke and Danny. And we really get the picture of that she has something to lose here and that it's really beautiful, you know?
Mm-hmm. Did Mr. Bendis offer you any thoughts on the character? Did you ask for any thoughts, or was he just like, go do your thing? I love that. I want to see what, you know. It's probably weird for him that but in a good way, that he's going to see this character he created, but he's going to be able to read stories. He's like, I don't know where it's going.
I mean, he said that, and I think that is so generous, like for him to say that, you know, he handed it off to someone who he thought would create stories he wants to read, which is such an incredibly generous thing to say. And I hope he really does feel that way. He was very generous in sort of sharing information. You know, I got to read, because we were working so far in advance, I got to read the scripts before they were coming out and the PDFs before. I think I saw the outline, so I knew where he was planning to end things and all that stuff to help me plan the arc, which was super helpful. He answered some questions for us, and we were able to toggle things a little bit. But he was pretty hands off. And I'm sure some of that is that he left for DC. I think it probably would have been different if he'd stayed at Marvel. For example, my first Marvel Summit was in January, and his last one was in October. If he had still been with Marvel in January, I'm sure, you know, I would have gotten to meet him, and we would have, you know, had conversations and things. So, you know, it might have been very different. Or maybe it would have just been the same and I would have gotten to meet him. I don't know. Well, who knows? But that changed it.
How did they decide for this to be a digital first? Was it just...
I can only speak to my suspicion and the little bit of what I know, but I think that if you look at the numbers for the Iron Fist book, the Luke Cage book, Jessica Jones, the Netflix type characters, you know, first of all, Solo, forget that they're Netflix characters. Solos are really hard to sustain. You know, Hawkeye couldn't do it long term either. Kate Bishop Hawkeye, it's just tough. If you're not named Batman or Wolverine, or you're not on a team, it's really hard to pull the kind of numbers you need to pull month to month, because monthly comics they're just a war of attrition. Like, you hope you start at a high enough number that you can weather the drop in readers every month, because it happens to every book. And I think they saw particularly with the Solo characters that were in the Netflix universe, you know, they really would love to tap more into that synergy, not to tell those same stories. Marvel still wants to lead, but I think they know that those viewers love those characters. And I think the thinking was, there's more of an audience out here, and we don't really know how to grab them. But if we can find ways to do exciting content and do it for longer without worrying about cancellation, and put it in a more bingeable model, i.e. faster books in larger chunks, like, maybe that's a thing. Maybe that's a way in which we can be more accessible to these people who probably aren't going to go to the comic book store on Wednesdays, but might be interested in a Luke Cage story. And I actually think it's really interesting. I mean, I don't know that this is going to be the final form. I think they're going to keep tweaking it until they find what works. But I think it's really interesting, not least of which because modern audiences who aren't super familiar with comics, $4 for 20 pages of content is a really high price to pay for media. Like, they're not used to that. And as comic fans, we're super used to it. And we're like, I mean, I'm sure we'd love it to be cheaper, but it's not that uncommon to us. Like, this is a media we love and we're used to sort of ingesting it at this price point. But for someone who's going to the movie or who can read a 20-page comic in 10 minutes and they're like, wait a minute, that was $4. Like, I just think it's hard for them to see the value in that when they know they can get stories other places at a cheaper rate. And so to me, 40 pages for $5 over 3 months to tell a complete story, I don't know. I think that's pretty good. I think that's that makes a lot more sense to if you're trying to capture a slightly different audience as well as comics fans. I mean, that's the other great thing is whether that price point and that rollout of content works for new fans or not, it's a great boon for print fan for regular Wednesday Warrior fans like us. Like, you're just getting a lot more content for a lot cheaper price. I think, it's a little tough on comic shops, probably. I think it's also, then there are some people who just won't go for it at all and will just get the trade if they're interested in it. But I know that part of Marvel's idea of rolling out the trade much faster after the digital issues have come out is an attempt to bolster the local comic book shops and be like, listen, there are people who weren't going to be your customers anyway. Those are the ones we're trying to reach for. And we'll turn this around much faster so that people who want print can still come to you and get it quickly. So, I mean, we'll see. I think it's a work in progress. Well, the only constant is change, right?
Mm-hmm. And maybe they're.
I'm a huge proponent of digital first. Like, ain't nobody got time to be rolling down to the comic book store every Wednesday for their pull list. Like, I'm a really busy person. I support my local comic book shop when I can, but Comixology exists for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I love the local comic book shop experience, and I certainly will be horribly pained if there's a point where we don't have those shops anymore. It will be really sad for me, but I don't have the room or the time for the floppies. And so that's a model I've already adopted pretty much, where I just buy digitally week to week and then I buy trades. So it's not that foreign to me, but listen, change is hard for some people. I totally get it.
Philip.
I know. I love my floppies, but
I love them too. I just can't, man. I lived in Manhattan for like 12 years. Like, where was I putting these comics? Like, I was dying. And now I'm in a little bit bigger space since I moved to Portland, but they're all in the garage. Like, I don't want to go to the garage all the time. Like, what am I doing in there?
Yeah, I know. My basement looks like Diamond's warehouse. Yeah.
I mean, look, I'm jealous of the people that can devote that sort of space and the people who are still engaged enough with the community to go, I'm such a recluse. It's really hard for me to like get out and do that. But I'm all into that experience and I want people to still have it. And I totally understand the people that are really interested in Jessica Jones and are sort of annoyed and who are like, well, I'm just going to get the trade in the fall. Please buy the trade. I would love it.
Hey, half your audiences recluses. There's one sitting right over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, what floppy I bought today, Mr. and Mrs. X.
Yes, I actually did make my trip for that.
Hey, thank you.
I bought it in the morning so I could read it and have it to read, awesome. But then I went out and got it before I came home. So,
well, high praise. Thank you.
It's high praise all around. Fans love it. Critics love it. I literally didn't see one bad review of it. That's like insane.
Well so far, I'm very happy.
I mean, yes, incredible feat just in our age of social media and everything. Yeah.
And everybody hates everything, I know.
Exactly. I haven't seen a bad review either. But I mean, not only are you the first person to write Jessica Jones after Bendis, but you're writing the first in continuity married Gambit and Rogue. How's that feel?
It feels awesome. And you know what? That's a little weird milestone too that I discovered because I was looking at a forum or something right when the miniseries was announced. And someone said something, they're like, you know what? I'm really excited to see a woman's take on this relationship. Then they never let a woman write this relationship. And I was like, wait, is that right? And I thought about it, and it's true. While you've had women write the characters individually over time, you've never had, when you look at all those big sweeping moments of their relationship in the last 20 years, there's never been a woman at the helm. And it doesn't mean a guy can't do it, but it still makes it an interesting, hey, yeah, let's try that. Let's see what happens. And so it was a huge honor to get to do it for Rogue and Gambit. And even though I had to be convinced that a marriage was the best thing to do, it's a huge honor to like chart the course for them. And I really came around on it. So, and I don't know that we've got an ongoing book without that sort of event to make that make sense, you know? So listen, I'll take it, and hopefully the fans will too.
I mean, it was a great story.
I think they're going to take it, definitely.
Yeah, great story, great art.
My favorite thing is X-23 and Gambit's hair. Like, oh my God, that was hilarious.
He's adorable, right? I love.
But then I was like, we got to the end, and I'm like, wait, a space action adventure? Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, they're X-Men. Yeah. I get it.
It was really important to me to. I know, like, some people really just want to see their interactions with the other characters, and after writing the first half being the wedding, I'm one of those people too, where I'm like, oh, maybe they should just stay home and we'll just, you know, do this fun intermingling with all their friends and family. But I really wanted to take them out of their element and like let them be on their own, and like, let's develop the relationship. Let's throw a bunch of obstacles at them and see what happens. And you know, Deadpool is the first object that we threw at that.
You excited to write some Deadpool?
Listen, I've already written the 2 issues that he's in. He's in 2 and 3. Ooh. And I fucking love it. He's again, like Luke Cage, a totally different energy, but you know, he's very charismatic and he can overwhelm the narrative really quickly. So you have to be a little bit careful. But I found Deadpool plus Rogue plus Gambit magical. I thought they were so fun. And then issue 3 has this really great 4-page action sequence with Gambit and Deadpool that I just love. It's one of my favorite things I've ever gotten to do. So it's really great. It's really great.
But I like the art because it was more youthful with the rounder faces.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like the take on Mystique. I know that's one like nitpick I saw in a couple of them, but I like that take on Mystique. I'm tired of the same old Mystique.
You mean the way she looked, or the
way she looked? Yep.
It's funny because let me first say Oscar is amazing. I love working with him. He's great. I think he's turning in really beautiful work. His figures are so kinetic, and like he's so good at nailing, you know, sort of a sexy thing without taking it too far. Like, you know, we had a lot of conversations about that where I was like, listen, I'm fine with a little cheesecake. They're the sexiest couple in the Marvel universe. Like we gotta lean into that. I was like, but we gotta make sure it's equal opportunity. I want to have fun with it, and we need to like make sure we don't go too far that Darren gets fired, our editor. But that was one of the only things I mentioned when the pages came in for issue 1, was that I was worried that Mystique and Rogue looked a little too similar. So it's funny that you picked up on that. But you know, it's like,
well, they have that thing too. So like, and like that's like one of my favorite dynamics, like from way back in the day, is the Rogue Mystique thing. So like for me, it just kind of made sense in my mind, I guess.
Yeah, no, I almost think, I mean, like my sort of headcanon for it is that she's almost unconsciously mimicking her a little bit, like to help Rogue have that moment of like, all right, let's just put all this drama on pause so that I can have a nice day. And you know, oh look, I look like you. I'm a little round faced and innocent. Like, aren't I cute? How could you be mad at me?
Especially on the wedding day when she was like, you know, I'm your mother and of course I'm gonna be here. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw a lot of people trying to hold not a lot of people. I saw a few people complaining that like Rogue lets her off the hook too much. And I'm like, she's not letting her off the hook for anything. She's like,
she's trying to have her day.
She just wants to have her wedding in peace. And if she throws her out, who knows what that's going to be. It also is a really disconnected emotional element, because no matter what kind of abusive relationship you've been in, you still want to have nice things. You still want to have happy moments. And people who abuse you, like Mystique has, it doesn't mean you don't have any feelings for them just because they're awful. Like, relationships are incredibly complex. So I don't know. That came from I have a very good relationship with my family, so it's a bit of a stretch for me to imagine having Mystique as a mother. But if my nightmare mother showed up at my wedding, I still think I'd want it to just go fine, and for her to watch from a distance and to know that she was there and to just be cool. I don't know.
Please, you could tell the thought you put into this, because like after all the years of like Gambit and Rogue, we can't touch. Why did anyone go the Kelly Thompson route and say, hey, power dampener? I'm just like, yes. Why has no one thought of this in 20 years?
Well, there is mention of it, I think, in X Factor, written by Peter David, the all-new X Factor that has Gambit in it. I think Lorna says something about it, like, Rogue's an idiot. She should just put on a suppression collar or whatever, which I find funny and I think is very true. But my thing is, there's a reason why she doesn't do that, but let's address it. Like, let's literally put it on the page. Like, I love that. I love that crap.
Nerd.
Yep. Super nerd. I mean, I don't know.
That's what I want right in my comic.
It's a compliment. I loved how close-knit you remember that the mutants are. I think a lot of people, because they are backbiting and infighting, but when it's those big moments, I really appreciated that you showed how close-knit they really can be. I thought that was really important and really great.
I saw a couple people who were irritated that they felt like Bobby and Kurt were being mean to Gambit. And I was like, I mean, have you ever given anyone a hard time? I was like, this is what
they're basically brothers, and that's what boys do.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't want to be on his team. He's stinky. I mean, it's like the equivalent of that. And it's also like, jokingly, I'm picking Rogue over Gambit. Like, it's just like a diss. Like, these people love each other. Like,
it's a big family, because
totally a big family of misfits, and I love that aspect of it.
Family will pick on each other, but hey, let some outsider come at them and be like, hey, I'll kick your ass. You come out my brother.
Yeah, exactly. I also loved that moment for getting Rogue to be annoyed with them. Like, hey, back off. Like,
it's my man.
My wedding day. That's my man. Like, stop being my annoying brothers. Like,
but we got a couple emails, but this was my favorite. I wanted to share this with you because there are some questions in here I want to know. But it's from Philip Pratt. Says, greetings from Miami, Florida. Rogue's always had a laissez-faire attitude towards Gambit's extracurricular activities, thievery. Now that they are Mr. and Mrs., does the shift in dynamics of their relationship change her opinions any? Is she more hell no, why the hell not, or less I know the better?
I don't really agree with any of that.
Well, that's the question. Is she going to be more,
Well, I don't think Rogue stands for being cheated on at all. I think you're risking your life if you cheat on Rogue when you're married to her. I think their relationship has had so much on again, off again.
Well, I think the question was more like, is she going to be against him if he goes to steal something or?
Yeah. That kind of stuff. Yeah, I think that is a tricky thing for them. And the longer they're married, which I hope will be a long time, the more potential that has to be a problem. I've had a problem with Rogue's sort of characterization of like, she really holds Gambit's feet to the fire on stuff, and she lets other people sort of slide a little bit. Cough, Magneto, cough. And part of my own headcanon on that is that it's because she cares more with Remy. Like, she has higher expectations of him. Like, he can be better. He doesn't have to do this. But I do think that's a very tricky part of their relationship, because no, she's not going to just like go along. And I think, one of the trickiest parts of their relationship is her wanting him to be better and him wanting to be better and wanting to be the man she thinks he is, but also wanting to know he's enough. And those are tricky elements. So I think we'll see some of that, but they're still in the honeymoon phase. So nobody's thinking the deep thoughts yet. So you get married in a fever and then you run off to space. You haven't thought it through yet.
But then there's also the other point, because this got me thinking. Also, you're building yourself quite the toy box between Jessica Jones, Mr. and Mrs. X, and West Coast Avengers is coming. Marvel's already one big shared universe, but do you plan on dropping Easter eggs linking the series or have them reference each other somehow? I'm thinking double date.
If Rogue and Gambit come back to Earth, we're still figuring out Arc 2. I know what issue 6 is, and I'm really excited about it. But then what the next arc is going to be is still in flux. But because of some other things that are going on with the X-Men that are coming up, which you guys are probably going to know in the next month, I'd say, that affects some of the things we're doing or not doing. So a double date might not be in their future because we might be sort of forced, not in a bad way, but sort of forced into a certain direction. So, but I think we'll make the most of it. So
extermination.
We'll see.
Oh, that reminds me of our terrible group chat we just had.
I mean, it's one of the sort of amazing and also sort of terrifying things about getting to be a Marvel contracted writer and getting to go to the summit is, once you start making comics professionally with a company like Marvel, you really see how the sausage is made and then you adjust to it. You're like, oh, okay. And then when you go to the summit, it's a whole new level of sausage. And you realize like all the really big ideas they've got going and all the plates they've already got spinning. And it's so many people involved. And, you have to be really respectful of that. And you have to find the way you fit best into that and then try to carve your own stuff out. So it's going to be interesting. We'll see. We'll see what people think. I'm excited, though.
Have you had to do especially on this book, have you had to do like a big change in direction of where you wanted to go? Because in like this a larger X-Men, especially with the X-Men, like there's a big event and you're like, okay, I can't go there.
Yes, I would have done. I already had a different second arc planned, and then because of things that are happening, it's just not going to work. But I don't even know that that's a bad thing. I think any writer will tell you that when you have to go back to the drawing board or when you have to do big revisions, you're just so annoyed. But 9 times out of 10, it takes you to a better place. So, and it's a little bit like, there was when I first found out they wanted to do this marriage, I was so against it. I can't even tell you. I wrote so many angry DMs about like, this is bullshit. They're being robbed, of all the cool build-up stuff. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, honestly, this is so them. And who can blame them? Because imagine if they try to do a wedding on their own with all his baggage and all her baggage. Is Mystique getting invited? Is the Thieves Guild getting invited? Or do the Assassins Guild get invited? Who gets it? Like, even just the invite list is a nightmare. Of course you would immediately elope. And this is way better than eloping because all their friends were already there. So, yes, some key family members are missing, especially on Gambit's side, and that sucks. But it makes a lot of sense for them. Plus, the whole narrative that the internet is running with that I love so much is that Gambit is the greatest thief in the universe. He just stole a wedding, which is brilliant. I love it. I love it.
That is them. I mean, it was like a real quick last minute thing, and that's the way they would do it.
Yeah. I also love that we had the opportunity with the miniseries to put them in the exact emotional place they needed to be in, to be like, you know what? Fuck it. Yes. Before we went to that island, the answer 100% would have been no. We've been through so much crap. The answer is yes now. Yes, I'll take this leap with you, and him wanting to do it, you know. And one of the best things that's come out of, I've seen a few fans say this, and I'm so glad people are picking up on this. One of my favorite things about dealing with the suppression collar. Okay, just if you hear wrestling in the background, it's my cats. They're like, "Why aren't we being fed? What is a podcast? We hate it." Anyway, so one of my favorite things about addressing the suppression collar thing in issue 1 was like so many fans picked up on the fact that her going for the suppression collar after the proposal means he proposed with no solution in sight for her problems, and those physical problems that they have of not being able to touch. There was no solution on the table. There were no ideas. There wasn't even a power suppression collar on hand. And he's like, it doesn't matter to me. And that makes it super romantic, possibly foolish, but super romantic.
It's Gambit.
Yes, exactly. He gets painted as this, as this like Lothario, this cheating Lothario all the time. And I'm like, fuck that. He's the most romantic dude in the universe. And that gets you laid a lot. So, I don't know.
No protection.
I just want to say this book, as a 90s kid who loved the X-Men, like, you just knocked it out of the park. It's everything that I wanted and more, and some things I didn't think I knew I wanted.
Thank you so much. It means a lot. I mean, I'm that same kid, you know. I had I not only bought a bunch of copies of X-Men 24, but I think also the Gambit miniseries I had multiple copies of, and I like cut them all up with X-Acto knife and like made collages. I was hardcore into them, man. It was the first thing I really shipped, like before I knew what that was. Hey, be quiet, please.
So who do we talk to about getting some more Rogue and Gambit swag? Like, I'm sorry, Avengers. I'm sorry, Black Panther. I need my Rogue and Gambit swag. Where's it at? Who do we talk to? Who do we petition?
I'd say every week someone tags me in a Twitter post trying to talk to Funko about where are their Rogue and Gambit Funkos.
Wedding edition. I
was gonna say they need a wedding. They need a wedding set. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, listen, the swag is fun. It would be cool. I'm more interested in issues. Like, I was just thinking the other day, like, it sort of sucks that Batman and Catwoman are getting, like, their wedding special album thing, and they didn't even get married, which is not a diss on that. I loved all of that. It's not a diss on that. But it just sort of seems like we should get the wedding album since we did it. I don't know.
Let's start the petition.
There's enough demand for that.
We got you. We're going to get a petition going.
I don't know if there's enough demand for it, but maybe I'll see what I can do. It would certainly be fun.
So any other questions, Lilith? This woman has cats to feed in bookstore.
I know it. We can let her go. It's so awesome having you. You're just like, you knock it out of the park all the time, and you're always welcome whenever you have free time, and after you feed the cats, of course.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was great to come back, and I knew how to do it this time with the link. So, you know, try not to forget.
But yes, all the comics are great, and can't wait for West Coast Avengers.
Keep up the good work.
Thanks. I hope you guys like West Coast Avengers. I'm really excited about it, and slightly nervous, but really excited.
Look at all the gold you're putting out now. the only problem was just keeping up the pace.
Yeah, let's hope it doesn't kill me.
So, besides these many projects, is there anything else you'd like to promote?
I think this is all that I'm allowed to say. There will be something else with Marvel being announced.
Maybe we're coming. Jeez.
August or September, and I've just started a new thing that hasn't been given the final green light, but I think it's going to happen. That will be really exciting, but that'll probably be more like announced maybe NYCC time. So we're a ways out. I've purged most of my secrets for now, and I'm feeling much relieved. So, and then I've got Nancy Drew still coming out. We've got 3 more issues of that. And and we might be doing another volume of that. It's still sort of being figured out. Monarch, shut up. Sorry.
Don't tell the secrets.
Good thing we don't speak cat.
I mean, he is pissed off. It's not even late, by the way. They usually get fed at 7:30. So, although I did get up really early this morning, so they're probably feeling it. Anyway.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We always appreciate when you give us your time, and especially these days, how busy you are.
Thank you. Thanks for taking the time. I'm really glad you guys like the books.
Oh yes, definitely. All right.
Cat got your tongue full.
Ah!
What's that?
I set you up. She said cat got my tongue.
Oh. All right, guys. I will talk to you later, okay?
All right.
Have a good one, bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Don't embarrass me in front of guests, Love.
Sorry, it was like a perfect setup.
I know. See, I did that on purpose. All right. So, everyone, that's right.
For those of us not on YouTube, shameless plugs.
Yes, we know important people, so you should follow us. Capes and Lunatics at gmail.com. Follow us, Capes and Lunatics and Comic Capers on Facebook, at Capes Lunatics and at Comic Capers Pod on Twitter. We're on the gram, and our voicemail 614-382-2737. That's 614-38 Capes. And hey, look, we're nice and inviting. Comic creators, come talk to us. Kelly Thompson likes us, and she's like half of Marvel right now. And Lilith, where can people talk to you?
So if you nerds want to chat about the DC TV universe, you can at me at Lilith Hellfire. If you want to kick it a little more old school or just talk about Superman, Save Me Podcast on Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, and Facebook.
And follow me at Nightwing PDP on Twitter, and email me nightwingpdp@gmail.com. Like I said, especially comic creators.
And don't forget to check out Capes and Lunatics Saturday night for Teen Titans Go to the Movie review.
That's right.
I've been watching some pivotal Teen Titan episodes, and I'm still not excited for the movie, but it might be the best thing DC puts out for this year, so I have to go see it.
That's right.
Sorry, Aquaman. I told you Shazam was going to be better than Aquaman. I'm just calling that right now.
But Shazam's next year, right?
Yeah, but still, it's going to be better. It's their next hope.
All right, but anyway, join us next time we'll have another creator.
Ah, yes.
Not from the big two. So, who will it be?
Who could it be now?
Nepotism abounds. We're shameless. But yes, thank you, Kelly Thompson, for your time, because we know you have hardly.
We're not going to see her for another 2 years, Phil.
She's too busy. But thank you and good night.